When the storm hit, 5 houses on my street went underwater. Only mine was still standing. The same house the HOA had ordered me to tear down my ugly dirt mound for. The berm they called a violation turned out to be the only thing that could have saved them. I didn't build it to make a statement, I built it to survive. After the flood of 21 chewed through fences and soaked living rooms knee-deep in brown sludge, I swore it would never reach my door again. I spent 3 weekends hauling soil-stacking retaining stone shaping a 6-foot-high berm behind my house. I'd been an Army logistics officer. Terrain and runoff patterns were second nature to me. The berm, sat 10 feet inside my property line, sloped perfectly toward the public drain. I even planted native grasses so it wouldn't erode. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. For one brief season, peace returned. Dry basement, dry yard. Then came the whispers. Looks like someone's building a bunker. Hope that mound doesn't flood the rest of us. And then the knock on my door. Saturday morning tennis skirt clipboard. Diane Mayer, Vice President of the HOA, self-appointed Queen of East Briar Trails. She didn't even say hello. This isn't in compliance, she announced, gesturing toward my backyard. We had reports. It's not consistent with community aesthetics. It's dirt. I said functional dirt on my property. She pursed her lips. It affects runoff patterns. Actually, I told her it improves runoff. I used elevation maps. The water moves faster into the drain now. She clicked her pen. We'll be issuing a formal notice. You'll need to remove it within 30 days. That slow-boil anger hit the kind that bubbles up when you know you're right but someone hides behind the word policy. I kept calm, did my research, sent them codes and hydrology reports. 3 days later, I got a thick envelope with the HOA emblem stamped in gold. Remove unauthorized land modification or face fines of hundreds per day. Unauthorized. They had no authority to regulate earthwork on private lots, and they knew it. Still, the idea that my effort born from trauma meant nothing to them lit a fuse. I promised myself I'd rather go broke than tear it down. When the next meeting came, I went. Rows of retirees, the board up front like a tribunal. I stood, introduced myself, explained the berm, the data, the safety. Some neighbors nodded. Paul Becker, a quiet retiree, spoke up. Didn't Frank's house stop the water last time? A murmur followed. Diane raised her hand sharply. This is not a debate. The board has made its position clear. I said, if you move forward with enforcement, I'll take legal action. Brent Callahan, the president, leaned forward, smug smile. That won't be necessary. But it was. A week later, another letter enforcement action will proceed May 3rd. They were going to hire a contractor to destroy the berm and bill me. I called, left voicemails, nothing. Hired a lawyer, Arlene Simmons, sharp as a blade. She told me, they can't demolish without due process, but you'll need an injunction fast. I filed the paperwork. Still, they moved quicker. April 30th. I came home from the grocery store and found wooden stakes and orange ribbons marking my yard. A laminated sign, demolition scheduled May 3rd, authorized by East Briar Trails HOA. I begged for an emergency hearing. They granted it only because Arlene sent a notice warning them of liability. The meeting room felt like a firing squad, Diane in her red lipstick, Brent tapping his pen, 2 silent board members flanking them. I laid out everything, city codes, drainage reports, drone photos. Diane barely glanced up. Your berm is an unsightly elevation. Residents have complained. Residents, I asked, or your friends? Her eyes narrowed. Arlene touched my arm. Don't take the bait, but I couldn't help it. That berm kept my house dry when this whole street was underwater. And you want it gone because it doesn't fit your Pinterest board. Diane crossed her arms. You should have filed a modification request. I didn't install a pergola. I moved dirt. The board ended the session without a word. The next morning, the contractor called me directly. We're starting tomorrow, sir. HOA said you were notified. I didn't wait. I called the city again, asked for an inspector. Jorge Morales showed up that afternoon, launched a drone, checked slopes, water flow. This berm probably saved 3 houses last time, he said. He emailed me a signed report. I thought maybe that would stop them. It didn't. At 7:55 a.m. the next day, the backhoe rolled in. Safety vests, diesel, growl the smell of exhaust in the cool air. Diane stood behind my fence like a commander. "Proceed," she said. I held up the report. "This document proves the berm benefits drainage and sits fully on private land. You destroy it, you destroy public infrastructure." The foreman hesitated. I told him I was filming. Arlene filmed from the sidewalk. "You're executing demolition without a court order," she said evenly. Diane snapped, "This is HOA jurisdiction." Arlene shot back, "Not above state law." Then Brent arrived, sunglasses windbreaker, pretending to be in charge. "What's the holdup?" He waved his hand. "Go ahead." The machine lurched forward. The bucket sank into the berm. The sound it felt like hearing bone break. 20 minutes later, my safety, my work, my peace, gone. Flattened. Diane smirked. "We'll follow up with restoration guidelines." The sky was already darkening. Storm warnings hit phones that night, Hurricane Rowan Category 2 heading straight for us. That evening, sitting at my table staring at the scar in my yard, I almost gave up. I felt helpless, the same helplessness I'd known overseas, crouching in a sandstorm, whispering, "Just give me a way out." Maybe they were right, I thought. Maybe I'd gone too far. Maybe I should have played along. Then I remembered my father's voice. "If you don't protect your land, no one else will." So I got up, drove to the supply yard, bought every sandbag they had, 12 pallets. By noon the next day, neighbors started showing up. Paul Becker, first gloves in hand. "I remember what your berm did last time." Then Sam and Marlene from across the street, scared but determined. "We want to help." 8 of us worked till dark, stacking sandbags, laying plastic, digging a trench. It wasn't pretty, but it was something. For the first time, I wasn't alone. The storm came hard. Wind, screaming trees, bending rain so heavy the drains clogged in minutes. I stood on my porch, watching the water snake down the street. My trench held. Brent was outside trying to pile sandbags by his door too late. Water was already lapping at his siding. Power went out. I fired up the generator, listening to the roar like a heartbeat. By midnight, the storm peaked Category 3. 90-mile gusts. Signs ripped away fences, splintered water surging downhill. Except mine. The sandbags held. The trench worked. When dawn broke, half the neighborhood was wrecked. 5 homes flooded. Brent's basement drowned. Diane's patio collapsed, her foundation cracked. My house dry, untouched. I walked outside, boots sinking into the mud, and stared at the place the berm had stood. They'd destroyed the one thing that could have protected them. The next day, the HOA called an emergency meeting. People showed up furious, soaked, holding photos of their ruined homes. Diane tried to speak. "We understand the storm was unprecedented." Paul barked, "Unprecedented." "You tore down the one thing that might have saved us." Marlene shouted, "You did it out of spite because you didn't like how it looked." The room erupted, voices, accusations, years of quiet resentment breaking loose. I stood, walked to the front, dropped a folder of photos and reports on the table. "These are the warnings you ignored. You called it unsightly. Now, half the street is unlivable. So tell me, should people who make decisions like that still be leading you?" Silence, the kind that shifts the air itself. Within a week, a petition circulated 61 signatures. A vote of no confidence. The news got wind of it. Storm fallout in the suburbs, the headline read. Drone footage of our street, the flooded houses, then a shot of mine, dry with sandbags stacked like a fortress. The reporter asked what I'd learned. "Preparedness isn't a violation," I said. "It's responsibility." That was all it took. At the special election, the community hall overflowed. The results came fast. Diane Mayer and Brent Callahan removed from the board. The crowd didn't cheer, they exhaled. Relief, not triumph. A few weeks later, I got my day in court. The municipal hearing on HOA overreach was packed, press, neighbors, even officials from other counties watching. I stood there steady, wearing my old Army blazer. "This isn't about dirt," I began. "It's about what happens when power stops listening." I laid out everything. The flood, the berm, the letters, the demolition, the storm. The city inspector testified that the berm's removal directly contributed to the flooding of several homes. The board's attorney tried to hide behind aesthetic standards. Nobody bought it. The ruling came down fast. The HOA had exceeded its authority, committed unauthorized destruction of private property, and was fined. Their right to regulate storm defenses suspended indefinitely. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed. Someone asked how it felt to win. I said, sometimes it takes a storm to wash away the wrong people in charge. That night I stood in my backyard on the rebuilt berm, higher, stronger rooted in stone this time. The soil was damp, the air clean, the neighborhood quiet. For once the silence didn't feel oppressive. It felt earned. Because in the end, this fight was never about a mound of dirt. It was about standing your ground, literally and figuratively, when people in power forget what protection really means.